So Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government are back at it again. This time, they're going for one of the most controversial land grabs in the history of the Israel and Palestine conflict. Let's talk about it. So Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, has announced that July 1st, they will be annexing, quote unquote, I don't like using that word because it's really just stealing, but they will be annexing more land from the Palestinian people. This is particularly worrisome, though, because it will officially put Palestine and Palestinian people in a position that they have not been in ever in the history of this conflict. So according to Mint Press News, they are going to be annexing the entire eastern part of the West Bank, which means that Palestinians will be cut off from the international border with Jordan and will be surrounded by Israel on all sides. Israel wants access to that land, which currently provides the West Bank Palestinians some 50% of their agricultural products, and they want complete access to the Jordan River. So for those of you who do not know, Jordan is basically the Palestinian dominated nation in which Palestinians escape to when they want to be free from Israeli rule. And although Jordan has its problems as far as its connection to the UAE and Saudi Arabia and that whole thing, it is still considered a safe haven, if you will, for the Palestinian people. Obviously, the people of the West Bank travel to Jordan as often as they can because they have family there. I know people personally who have family in the West Bank that decided to stay for whatever reason because it's their land. They take pride in that, I'm sure. But other members of the family decided to move on to Jordan so they can have a more secure and prosperous life. If you understand the dynamic of Israel and Palestine, then you'll know that once Israel annexes that location, there will be no crossing back and forth between the eastern part of the West Bank into Jordan. You have to understand this. Kim Iverson actually did a video. I believe she's actually about to do a series based on that visit, where she was explaining just how difficult the lives of Palestinians were, especially Palestinian lives in the West Bank, and basically how many Palestinians have been completely cut off from their family and are unable to travel back and forth between the West Bank and Jordan as is. So imagine being completely surrounded by Israel. This is clearly an attempt to just wipe out the Palestinian people and, of course, eventually completely grab the West Bank, which has always been a goal of the Israeli government that they haven't been shy about. Now, what will it mean? So Mint Press goes on to say that what exactly is the Declaration of Sovereignty and Annexation? No one seems to know for sure what it means. Israeli military experts admit they were not informed as to the details of the move. Israeli politicians are vague, and Palestinians, no one talked to them about it. And in any case, people in positions of power don't care what they think, unfortunately, which is true. Saeb Erekat, who still holds the title of Palestinian chief negotiator, said in an interview with the Israeli television channel Enet that the situation is very severe, and I have never seen it more severe than I've seen it right now. So they don't know what it's going to look like. They don't know what it means, but we do know, once again, that this part of the West Bank makes up a significant portion of the Palestinian economy when we're talking about agriculture and things like that. I think what makes this particularly scandalous is because we're in the middle of a damn pandemic, people. In fact, this pandemic, according to Netanyahu, has been bolstered by the just uncleanliness of Palestinian people. If anything, the COVID-19 situation in Israel is mostly the fault of Palestinian people. I'm not joking. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu has said. We actually covered it right here on this channel. He basically tried to put the crisis squarely on the shoulders of the Palestinian people. And so as Palestinians are trying to fend off this virus amongst a plethora of other things, with less access to healthcare, with less access to clean water, with less access to clean food, with their houses being bulldozed on a regular basis. And it's the summertime, which means all of that is about to be exacerbated even more so, because Israel has always had a habit of cutting off access to the Palestinian people when it comes to water and agriculture and things like that. So it's about to be exacerbated. And despite this pandemic that Netanyahu is claiming is extremely severe and specifically severe due to the Palestinian people, he wants to displace them even more so. He wants to take over their land and their livelihood, in which, once again, they'll have even less access than they've already had to all the things that one needs to remain healthy, and put them in a situation where they become more susceptible to the same virus that they have less health care to treat. Which, if you have common sense, you would understand that eventually that means Israel would suffer as a result of that. The Israeli people that Benjamin Netanyahu is proving he doesn't really give all that much of a damn about. I know he treats Palestinians like second-class citizens, but you also have to remember, people, it isn't like Netanyahu has a damn mandate. The man has been indicted. The Israeli people don't like him. How he keeps getting elected is a mystery to everyone who doesn't understand how election integrity works, or a lack thereof, I should say. Everybody knows that Netanyahu is not liked for the most part. But let's be clear, there is not being enough done by the Israeli government and the Israeli people, in my opinion, to challenge the leadership of Netanyahu. Yeah, we have these vague statements. We have these good things are good, bad things are bad statements. We have, like you just said, there's a Palestinian chief negotiator, but even he admits that the situation is severe, and Netanyahu's own military didn't even know what was going on. And you have to remember, if we're talking about the IDF, which is the quote-unquote Israeli Defense Force, and other members of the military that have to deal with the Palestinian people, they're the ones who are actually going to have to see this through and deal with the backlash from this Palestinian people. And so if we're going to talk about this in the context of COVID, they are the ones who are going to have to expose themselves to a group of people who have received less access to healthcare and therefore are more likely to not only have COVID, but because they cannot be tested for it, it's not even like they would know if they would have COVID. Which means those soldiers, those Israeli soldiers, are going to have to go back to their families being exposed to something. And basically they weren't even told. They weren't even told the plan of action. They were just they had this thrown on them. So Netanyahu is not only screwing the Palestinian people, but he's also screwing his own. But he doesn't care, because at the end of the day, it's about Israeli supremacy, and at its core, it's really about white supremacy. If you understand and understood how Netanyahu works, it is a damn shame that we are still seeing this disgusting behavior without basically going unchallenged, right? Yeah, the United Nations says something about it, and they're going to speak out about it. But at the end of the day, what can they do if the United States continues to not only allow this behavior, but aids and abets this criminal behavior, these violations of international law? This is not conjecture. This is not opinion. These are facts. We try, because Georgia, the country, voted to rejoin Russia. We tried to move in soldiers and demonize Russia just for them voting to rejoin Russia, at least in a gubernatorial capacity. But Israel is literally taking land now in the middle of a pandemic, which is funny because y'all know I'm not a fan of Dr. Fauci as it is, because once again, you've been a part of 5 administrations, bro. Come on. There's no way you survive 5 administrations without being corrupt, given how corrupt these administrations have been. So, excuse me, I don't think it's 5 administrations. I think it's 3 administrations in 5 terms, something to that extent. But notice that he's been talking about the international community when it comes to coronavirus in Italy and France and all, and obviously our country, but he's not talking about, and probably will not talk about, the ramifications, the health ramifications of Israel annexing that part of the West Bank, once again cutting off access to vital resources. That will exacerbate the crisis there. He's not going to talk about that. Just like we know Trump isn't going to talk about it. Hell, Trump is probably giving the thumbs up for this. As long as America continues to aid and abet this criminal behavior, the behavior will continue. And it will be state sanctioned. It will be paid for by your tax dollars. So I urge you all to like this video, share this video, leave a comment below, tell your friends about this. This is supposed to start on July the 1st. So right around the corner, what, 2 days from now, tomorrow, I think, maybe. It's supposed to start. People are going to be cut off from their families potentially for the rest of their lives. Once this annexation happens, and for the first time ever, Palestinian people will be completely surrounded by their oppressor, the Israeli government. And we cannot stand for that. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are about this. Make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe. But more than anything else, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, find your balance. Peace. If you like that segment of Mikasa Sukasa, don't forget to like the video and smash that subscribe button. Want access to members only live streams, behind the scenes footage, and other premium content? Well, you can endorse us on Rockfin Premium, become a patron through Patreon, or you can sign up for the MCSC Premium membership through YouTube. All the links are in the description below. But hey, more than anything else, always remember,
Find your balance.
Find your balance.
Find your balance.
Find your balance. Find your balance.
Find your balance. Find your balance.
Always remember, more than anything else, find your balance.
peace.